what are the pros and cons of homeschooling? I have a lot of friends that are doing homeschooling right now. Pat's kids are in private school. I went to public school my whole life, and then at the end of high school, I went to private school. I've done it all. The last thing that I ever wanted to do in my life was be home with my parents and learn from my parents. Like, homeschooling was not an option for me.
Yeah.
So what are the pros and cons that you're seeing from being a homeschool?
So let me say this. My relationship with my teenagers is amazing. Okay? You want a good relationship with your children? Do not send them away from you for 8 hours a day. Do not do that.
No.
Zero do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, just with my parents, they would have
No.
I'm in the
destiny
desert.
Hold on. You guys can't comment because your waters were tainted when you were sent to school. Okay? The school got between you and your parents. The school presented.
I don't know about all that.
My parents are really fucking nice. There's a period when I was 19 where I was homeless for a month, and I thought, man, this sucked, but it's not as bad as live with mom and dad.
You can't say because
I'm with him on that.
You can't say because you don't have the experience of not having the school come between you and your parents. The thing that when you drop your child off at school, you are tacitly telling the child, I abdicate my responsibility. I cannot be responsible. The school is responsible. The school has authority. My authority is now challenged inside my own home. The moment that the school disagrees with whatever, you lose. The school wins.
That's part of life.
No, it's not. I disagree.
You're wrong.
My teenagers have never rebelled.
Your teenagers have to follow
plenty.
a different set of rules depending on what environment they're in. If they go to a friend's house, that friend's house might have a different set of rules that they have to play by.
Not if they challenge my rules.
If you're, let's say that, I don't know if this is the case for you, but if your house, let's say you guys wear shoes in your house because you do that and you don't care, and if they go to another friend's house and then their house, the rule is no shoes in the house, they can't they could challenge that parent's authority, but it would
respect, right? The rule is respect.
Okay, but if you're going to make it that broad, then you can say the same for school. You respect what your teacher tells you, right?
My point is the teacher sets up this conundrum inside the child. So daddy is authority, except that now the teacher is the authority, and daddy told me that the teacher's the authority, so now I trust the teacher. And by the way, as we know, and I don't know what private school, but we know in public schools there's a lot of challenge to parental rights and parental authority. And that sets up a huge conundrum for the child. That's child abuse.
Can you just go back to my initial question? Because obviously you're going to be an advocate of homeschooling. We're not trying to sway your opinion.
I don't say homeschooling anymore because school is child abuse. The whole idea.
You've got a whole far right directive on this. But let's go back to the question. What's the pros and cons of home education?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the pros and cons?
Okay,
Give me maybe the top 3 pros and maybe some cons, if you would.
The founders of the nation, geniuses, right?
Sure.
Geniuses. They created this. This is the greatest leap in prosperity the world has ever seen.
Forefathers were total G's,
right?
100%.
Never went to school.
Top G's, one might say.
Top G's.
Never went to school.
Yes.
What?
As you said, there were no schools back then.
Hold on, I just want a quick fact check for the audience. So if people start looking up Benjamin Franklin, George, all these people, none of these people were educated in any institution outside the home. There were no tutors brought in outside. There were no teachers anywhere. They didn't go to any sort of class.
But that's not the question. The question is, did they go to school? They didn't go to school.
Okay, but
K through 12,
but were they educated by their parents at home, like a homeschooler would do today?
Perhaps.
Well, you're the one making the claim. Is that true that they were educated?
All I'm saying is we didn't have schools, so they didn't go to school.
But go on with your point. Fair enough. We're going for pros and cons of homeschooling. I'm trying to get this answer.
So my point is the freedom model, right, created this.
Got it.
Benjamin Franklin, do you know what he did?
He did a lot of stuff.
Everything.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. But what our system does is it pigeonholes the child and it says you need to do this or you need to do that. You need to choose. You can't do both. Mm-hmm. It also says don't try. That's one of the paradigms in school because failure's bad.
Okay.
Failure is bad. What's the key to entrepreneurship?
Try again.
You fail.
Yeah, of course.
You fail and you get back up and you try again.
All right.
But the school paradigm is failure's bad. That red F on a white sheet of paper, that's bad. So don't try. That's the subtext. That's the underlying message.
Or one might say, don't try to don't fail. But, okay.
Yeah. How do you get A's if you don't try?
But keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay.
Well, I'm looking for pros and cons here, just to be a friendly
so
reminder.
The pros are the family relationship.
Sure.
That's a huge pro. The freedom that the child has to pursue his innate giftings. Right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of freedom built in. There's a lot less time spent on, quote, education. And let's just talk about academics for a little bit, because the school focused very much on academics. So we believe that education is academic, right? I mean, when you define education, how do you define education?
That's
Or
a very
school?
broad word.
Well, your child goes to school to what end? Why does he-
Learning.
Well,
learning.
they
Learning
go to
what?
school to learn things, but generally to prepare them to exist in the world as probably a functioning unit of the economy.
But one of the criticisms that you had of school is it doesn't prepare them because it doesn't teach home ec. It doesn't
Hold on.
teach.
I didn't say
life
it didn't
skills.
prepare them, period. It prepares you for the future job, hopefully, that you hold, and it kind of rounds you out as
Do
a
you-
person when you learn other things.
Do you know that school today, that the jobs that the schools are preparing children for are going to be gone in the next 15 years? That
No.
like
I don't.
50%
I think if you go to
of
school,
the jobs
no.
that are being created, that will be created in the next 15 years, the schools aren't preparing children for.
That might be true. But I mean, but who do you think is going to have? How many besides you? Do you two have kids?
He's got 4. I've got 0.
If you had kids, would you send them to college or no?
Well, that's not the question. Would
Well,
I
it-
send them
No,
to
no. I'm
school?
just
Would I
real
send them
quick.
to school?
Would you send your kids to college?
Depending on what they want to do.
Depends on what they want to do.
Just so you know, for me, it's more around STEM. Like my kids,
College is a tool.
So let me give you an idea about what my thoughts are on this. I don't think homeschooling is for everybody. I do think more people should consider homeschooling. Right now, we have about 3.7 million homeschool students in America. It's a bigger number than I thought, by the way. I'm looking at the
Well,
data
it
right
almost
now.
doubled because of COVID.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised.
Well, it's
and
a
I
black
think
swan event.
COVID also probably encouraged parents to say, you know what, I kind of don't want to put my kids in school. I don't like what they're doing. So it was a bad
And
thing.
rightfully so.
No problem. I'm for the average person that doesn't want to do home. Like my wife doesn't want to do homeschooling. We've talked about it. She doesn't want to do it. She's like, no, I'd much rather have the kids go to a school. So they go to a private Christian school, and we're happy about it. My concern is the values and principles being forced down kids' throats today when you're talking to them, and that is to do that too early makes me a little bit uncomfortable.
Didn't you just recently say you had a conversation? I feel like you had a conversation about LGBT with your kids recently, or
of
something
course.
that you kind of
That's
weren't
one of the
prepared
reasons.
to.
No,
right? And the exposure, not just to like what's being taught in the schools, but the exposure to the culture that comes from the other children.
Sure,
Right?
absolutely.
So all of that is like this nefariousness from the culture that's feeding in to the kids who are in school today.
Yeah.
But we used to say that education was the 3 R's, right? The 3 R's. It's academics. And that was the big thing, is like take the Bible out of
What's
school.
the 3 R's?
You don't know the
Reading,
3
recess,
Rs?
and arithmetic?
Yeah, reading, writing, right? It's not even 3 R's. Like we know that it's a lie, and yet we sort of like laugh and move on.
But-
it's not. Education is the whole doctrine. Education should be focused on the whole child and how to manage that child into adulthood. You're raising the parents of your grandchildren. You're not raising children. You're raising the parents of your grandchildren. So keep your eye on the prize. What do you want for them from their lives? And the school teaches college prep and career readiness. That's the whole focus of the schools, is to get those kids into college. College prep and career readiness makes the value of the child his earning.
If there's one thing I will say is I don't trust in the public educational system. I don't. If a person can make money, if the person can make money, enough money, like you know how people just sell the dream on, hey, go make money so you can buy a Ferrari or a Lambo or if you can go make money to get your kids out of public school, to put them in a private school that's teaching the values and principles that align with you, go make your money for that. That'll be better worth of your money being spent than going and buying a fancy car or a dream house. Yeah, I'm not a fan of what's
Investing
going on
in
in
the
public
future,
schools.
right?
Yeah. So some want to do homeschooling, and some can take the alternative and put them in a good private school.
I fully agree with Pat. And again, I've been to public, private, but I do want to get this question answered because there's a lot of people considering homeschooling, and that's great. Ben Franklin, everything, the household, but. Are
Pros
you
and
willing?
cons.
Are
We
you
had
are you
pros,
are you
we founded a
willing to
country.
at least acknowledge that there are some cons, and what are the cons?
Sure. So, well, first of all, so we call it homeschooling. But the problem is that means we're taking the school paradigm and adopting it in our homes. And I think that that's basically the Trojan horse, right? We're allowing the school paradigm to invade our homes. And the school paradigm is not a learning paradigm. It's a don't ask, don't try, don't think paradigm. So it's the anti-learning paradigm. That's why I bristle at the word homeschooling. And that's why his wife doesn't want to homeschool, because she doesn't like school. she didn't have a good time in school. So why
Or
would
she just doesn't want to
to
spend her entire day teaching 4 kids.
Well, because she believes that it takes the entire day, because we've been brainwashed by the system to think that school takes the entire day. But the only reason it takes the entire day is because parents were working and they said, hey, give us your children while you're working and we'll keep them for the full day. But school doesn't take, or education doesn't take
Got
the
it.
entire day.
So what are the
So
cons?
it's a completely different paradigm. So
What are the cons?
The cons of homeschooling
Yeah.
is trying to replicate the school at home. That's a disaster. And in fact, the parents who choose the K through 12, which is like the public school curriculum, they choose to do that at home. They have the highest recidivism rate, and they put their kids back in school because they can't do it. Because it's a setup, okay? You went to school for 12 years and you were taught you can't.
He does seem
I
like the
don't-
kind
I
of
don't-
guy
yeah,
that
I
feels
don't-
like he can't. I
Can't do
get that
anything.
I get
Can't do
major I
anything.
can't vibes from him. Yeah.
Exactly. How much social interaction do your kids have with all their peers?
So my son is an extreme extrovert. He's got 2.5 million followers on TikTok.
I'm talking about in real life.
He has
2.5
so
million
many
followers.
friends. It's beyond
Real
me.
life, Sam.
Real life friends.
No, how much
I
interaction?
went to a conference and I sat next to a young guy
Yeah.
and had some nice interactions with him. He ran all the AV stuff for the conference. I go home, I'm telling my son about this conference. He goes, yeah, I know, you were sitting next to Josiah. He's a friend of mine.
That he met online.
No, that he
I'm-
met in person,
But
that
I'm
he hung
asking.
out with.
Okay,
I used to
forget
hang out
about
with
your
him.
famous TikTok son. You have how many kids?
3.
3. I'm asking how much social interaction they have with other kids.
A lot. And
Where and when?
I have to ask you why you're asking that.
Ooh.
Okay, my fear is that they're probably, I'm not saying your kids, if you're doing homeschooling and you're hanging out with mommy and daddy every day, my fear is that you're not interacting with your peers. One of the
Why
things
is
that
that a fear?
What do you, I mean, because you got to get out there and be a part of the world. My fear is that I don't have kids, but I have a nephew that I basically help raise. He's a 10-year-old kid who goes to a great public school in Miami. That's hard to believe.
My
I
fear
get it.
for him is that he's being bullied or he's learning how to bully.
But I don't operate in fear. I operate in reality. He's not being bullied. If anything,
Well,
he's doing the bullying.
You said
You
you
operate
had
in I
fear,
can't.
Yeah,
so
exactly. I can. But my fear would be that I'm home with mom and dad every single day. I have like some sort of mommy Oedipus complex going on, and I don't have any interaction with any kids my age. I'm not on a sports team.
That's bull-
I don't interact.
I'm sorry,
but
that's
it's
a
not.
complete bull.
No,
Yeah, has he even made a TikTok
Yeah,
account yet?
you've
yeah.
created this whole
No,
false paradigm.
because I'll tell you-
that homeschool
Stop it,
is
Sam.
being home at
Let me tell you. Let me tell you some of my best
memories.
memories of school. And anyone out there is watching this. It isn't in class raising your hand. It's in between halls, recess,
I know.
talking to a hot
Right.
chick over there,
the
understanding social
socialization
dynamics,
argument. I know.
socializing. What are we doing during recess? Oh, those kids are smoking cigarettes. Holy shit, I don't want to smoke. Let me go over here. Those are the gangs. Let me not go over
Right,
there.
right.
I'm on a sports team right now. Cool. There's my best friend. Hey, buddy, good to see you.
Yeah.
That is what school is.
My kids did
and
sports.
they get none of that at homeschool.
They absolutely do not get none of that at homeschool. You're
They
setting
get
up
to
this
see you
completely
in between
false
periods.
paradigm.
What do they get to see?
Ask
They-
a specific question.
They have
So
much
for-
more social interaction than they would in
Can you be
school.
specific?
Where?
How?
Where?
Where?
How?
Well, my kids all did sports. They all went to piano.
Wait, what
They
kind of
all-
sport? How do you do
we-
sports
we
as a
did-
homeschool kid?
You actually participate with schools.
You
to
just
be part of
participate with the
sports.
school sports
They'll
leagues.
let you. They just let
Yeah.
you send kids to play
or
on
the
team? Oh, that's
non-school
good.
sports leagues.
Gotcha.
They by the way, they went shopping with me, so they had plenty of interaction with people, real people, adults in the stores, for instance.
Got it.
They went to events with me, so they had plenty of my kids all grew up on film sets, so they had plenty of interaction with people of all stripes on film sets. So the idea that somehow they're just home, you're painting me as if I grew up or I raised my kids in some backwater in Georgia and prevented them from seeing people, and that's just a fault.
There's some homeschools in Georgia right now that are very offended.
Yeah, okay. What about the kids who go to school who can't talk to anybody because they're extreme introverts, and the schools actually kill them because they are so burdened by all of the interaction?
Sam,
You can't just
I
paint
think-
one picture and
Sam,
say, "Wait."
totally agree with you. You made a very clear case of why you should do homeschooling. That's great, but I think it'd be unfair to acknowledge that there are certain situations where they're not the best approach. Like,
So-
for instance, Destiny and myself, if my mom or my dad was trying to be my homeschool teacher, I would flunk out of school and I would skip class, if you know what I mean, every single day.
That's because they brought the school paradigm into the home.
I enjoyed school. I enjoyed interacting with others. That has helped me become a salesperson, an entrepreneur, and understanding networking, social dynamics. That actually worked out well for me. So what I'm saying is, like, not every kid should just go to homeschool, period, end of story. There's pros and cons to everything.
Listen, if you're religious, you can go to CCD. There are after-school clubs you can send your kids to. There's plenty of socialization.
What's CCD?
Can happen. Like Christian education for kids. Like if you wanted to send them to a private school, but you homeschool them instead, you send them to those things. Sunday school.
There are lots of co-ops and
Plenty of
other
places to get
kinds of
social
paradigms for kids to
Homeschooling
have.
comes in.
Maybe your bad relationship with your parents is because you were conditioned at such an early age to spend so much time away from them when you went to the school.
To be clear, I love my mom. If she's watching, I love you.
Well,
Mom.
you sound like you couldn't be schooled by her. So,
That's
and
true.
maybe that's because the school got between you and your mom at an early age.
Yeah, listen, I think it is an argument that's being made, and I think more people ought to consider homeschooling, but I don't think it's for everybody. Here's some statistics to look at. 3.7 homeschool students in U.S. State with the most homeschoolers are Carolina, Florida, Georgia. Top 3 reasons for homeschooling is concern about school environment. Top reason, homeschool students outperform institutional school students academically. Interesting. The highest
by
homeschooling
far.
rate is among students with a grade equivalent of 6 to 8. 48% of homeschooling households have 3 or more children. The average cost of homeschooling is $700 to $1,800 per student per year. Wow, it's a big savings. 1 in 3 homeschooling households has an annual income over $100,000, and homeschooling saves $56 billion of taxpayer money annually. Go a little lower to show which state has the most. It was interesting to see who was number 1. Keep going down. Keep going. You'll see
North
Carolina.
Carolina.
Yeah, Carolina's number 1 with 10.4%. Keep going. Right there. Okay. 10.6% of all the students in Carolina are homeschooling. Wow. Did you know that?
It is
why is
by
that?
far
Do you know
way
or
more
no?
pervasive
it's a big
in North
number.
Carolina. Why is that?
Yeah, Florida's 4.6, then it's Georgia, Virginia, Washington, Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Carolina, Massachusetts,
I think
Nebraska.
it's infectious. I think when you meet children who have been home educated, they're a cut above. They are more adult because they haven't been coddled. The schools tend to coddle children and infantilize them and make them feel like they can't. And so children who grow up in a homeschool environment, they do chores at home. They have a responsibility to the family that's more cemented, right? They're more locus focused or whatever. And so I think that and they're more conscientious. They tend to be more conscientious with their work because there's the paradigm between them and the parent, not a teacher that changes every year or every semester or what. My son in 2nd grade had 2 teachers and they just alternated days. And I was like, that's not a great paradigm for a kid to go back and forth between a different teacher every day. So there's so much to recommend it, and there's so little to recommend against it. And the socialization argument is this cropped up, this sort of straw man argument that they've built up as a way of sort of saying, hey, but school is good for this. And I'm like, no. The idea is school is supposed to educate the child. So we're talking education. You want to bring in socialization? I'm like, I don't care because every choice is a binary choice. Okay? And the reason that we know that is because you have your priorities. So if you prioritize the education of your child, then education is first. And socialization is, well, I'll get that figured out once I get education handled. Okay, so there is absolutely no argument you can make for socialization that would say the child should be in school. When I lose the education argument, the argument's done.
Let's say I fully agree with you. And by the way, you're making a great case. I'm not being argumentative, but I think there are
poke holes. Troll me, baby. Troll me.
Let's go. Let's troll you right now. I think there are rules, and I think there are exceptions. I think what you're doing is exceptionally the exception, because even like, let's take out North Carolina, which is the complete anomaly here, 10% of kids. So I don't know what happened in North Carolina, but every other state, you're talking about 2 to 5% of children. So there's 90 to 95% of kids that are never ever going to be homeschooled,
whose parents don't have enough confidence in themselves, having gone K through 12, having graduated high school, do not have enough confidence in themselves to even teach their children the 3rd grade.
Because they were
really
indoctrinated. They were indoctrinated at an early age with the school system. It's the only thing they know. So their whole life is a binary, like my kid either goes to school or he's a loser. How could a parent like that be in a state of mind to even begin to homeschool their kid?
I don't know if you're trolling me with that comment
Trolling
right
the
there.
fuck out of you for the past hour. I disagree with almost everything you said. Sorry, I'm just fucking with that.
Why? What do you wholesheartedly disagree with Sam on? And you have an 11-year-old, so you could speak to
He's
this.
actually, but he's making a really great case.
Yeah, but I think they're insane cases. I don't agree with anything. Almost like even the numbers
I'm
on here.
fine with
were-
that. You're still making the case, and you're being highly
Sure.
effective.
Even the numbers over here were crazy. That $600 to $1,500 a year. I'm guessing that's only spent on curriculum, like on books and stuff. But that
on
doesn't.
books.
Yeah, but there's something in economics we learn called opportunity cost, and having a parent stay at home for the entire day, that's 30, 40, 50,000 a year in lost income if they were working a job. On the other hand,
Yeah, but you would say that parent would insist that their child go to a private school. That could be 20 grand, 30 grand. I don't know.
I mean, if you're going to a really expensive private school, it could be that.
No, that's what schools call.
That was our choice,
Maybe
right?
in Miami.
In
I mean, I've looked at the
California.
tuition. I want to send my kid to the high school that I went to, which was a private high school, and I think that's $15,000 a year right now.
Okay.
So, but I understand costs are going to change in different areas. I think the socialization argument is a valid one. I think there's a lot of stuff that's being hidden in terms of what you're advocating for in terms of homeschooling. So, for instance, you keep saying this that 8 hours a day is too much. What do you think is what is like the ideal amount of time a day it should take for instruction? And then two, what are the things that you want to cut out? I'm curious.
Cut out.
By the way, but before you answer that, I think would be great, since we're on this topic, and before we move on, Rob, are you able to do a poll from our audience if they're an advocate of homeschooling, or if they're I would like to get maybe some numbers from the audience.
Call
what
it
they-
home learning, would you please?
Yeah, please
Home
do not
learning.
call it homeschooling.
Do not
Home
instantiate
learning.
that
Adam,
paradigm, that dichotomy, that false dichotomy of homeschool
He was
or
asking a
public
good
school.
question.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
can do a poll without having to stop him. Go ahead. Ask the question you were
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah, my two questions would be, one is, what do you want to cut from instruction? Because it sounded like you were saying 8 hours is way too much. You could do it in way less.
Yeah.
And then two, what is the daily amount of instruction you think you need? Like how many hours a day or 30 minutes? How long do you think you need to spend?
Okay, so I home educated and I actually homeschooled, so I'm culpable here, right? This is
Home
how,
educated,
but
Sam.
no, I homeschooled. I schooled them, okay, because I bought into the whole paradigm, and I thought school was education. So for several years, I homeschooled my children until I figured out that the freedom model is a much better model and the school model is a failed paradigm, right? Because I felt inadequate. I went to Duke University. I speak 5 languages. I felt completely inadequate to educate my own children.
Just to refocus, I want to know,
Right?
how long do you think the instruction will be, and what do you want to cut from the
I
instruction?
spent roughly 3 hours at the kitchen table with my young children every day, all 3 of them, 3 hours. The rest of the day, they pursued instruction. The rest of the day, a few more hours during the day, they pursued instruction, but they didn't need direct instruction from me. They didn't even need me for those 3 hours. I just chose to be at the kitchen table available to them, getting my work done because I worked full time. I wrote a book and I also did 3 hours of radio every day. So I was also working. And then one day a week, we had when they were very young, we didn't do the co-op. Then we started doing the co-op, and when my son entered 7th grade, actually before then, when they were 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, we did a full day of co-op. So that was from 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
And I spent the day with them there.
You said, how old are your 3 children now about? Do you mind saying?
21, 18, and 17.
Gotcha. Did any of them, or are any of them going to college?
No, not yet.
Do you know what? So the 21-year-old does TikTok,
He does TikTok and he does social media for people, and he's an actor.
and do you know what the 2 younger ones want to do?
So my second seems to like engineering, but he's questioning whether college is the way to get to the cutting edge of engineering. So he's exploring his options right now.
So what is your metric for success for homeschooling your children?
Their happiness.
That can't be the answer.
No?
No. If I let my kid run around for 8 hours a day until he's 18,
no,
he would
no.
be very happy.
No.
But that can't be the answer for
Education should be
successful.
the pursuit of truth, beauty, and goodness. So as long as I've equipped them to pursue truth, beauty, and goodness, then I know that they are well grounded.
Okay, so my mind is completely business wired. So I'm thinking like KPIs, like key performance indicators. So if I educated my child from K through 12 in my home, one marker for success for me, I would think that if he performs well on like the ACT or the SAT, okay, I've done a good job educating him. Or if he goes to college and he's very successful,
Right.
or if he maybe gets a good job, like a traditional job. Now, if they do non-traditional work, that's cool, but I don't know how much of a bearing that is on like how well I educated him, right? So like I could probably set my kid up to be decently successful on YouTube just because I am. If we started doing videos together,
Right.
but I don't know if that's like if that's showing that like I educated him well, or I'm just like kind of letting him piggyback off my career. So I'm curious in terms of like how do you mark that you were successful or that your children had a positive experience doing the home learning thing as compared to a contemporary, as compared to somebody else that's the same age that would have gone through traditional schooling.
A marker of success is that my child can teach himself and is not afraid to learn. So my children will teach themselves anything that they need to know, and they're not afraid to go try to figure out how to learn it.
But if I ask like what is like
the other thing
level
is that they're all entrepreneurial spirits, and so they understand how business works, because that I think is something that we ought to be teaching our children.
Sure.
How business works. In fact, my son is a lot brighter than I am with regards to that.
I think that's one of the
well,
more powerful things that you said is is the entrepreneurial free thinking spirit, because that is not taught in
but that's
killed.
not
It's
not
killed in
powerful though,
school.
right? Let's say that this is going to sound
but your metric is the academic metric. So
let's say I'm standing in a room with 100 parents, okay, and every single parent here. What is it? 2,400 is the max SAT score today? I don't even know. Is it 24?
I can't
I
remember.
thought it was 6, but they raised it to 1,800.
I thought it was 16
It used to be
or maybe
1,600. They
let's
raised
say,
it. Yes.
Let's say that SATs. Let's say I'm standing in a room, SATs.
Inflation.
And
Inflation's
every
like
every
2,400.
parent here is telling me that like, oh, my kid got a 1,700 on the SAT, right? Very quickly, I can kind of ascertain like the academic capabilities and the math skills, the English skills, the reading skills of these kids. Let's say that you stand in a room with 100 parents, and I know both of you know this because you guys have probably hired people and talked to people before. Somebody comes up to you and they say, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't know what the fuck that means. I'm going to need to see some work. I'm going to need to see a portfolio. I need to see some, like, just because you're an entrepreneur, that might just mean that you run a channel and you like do drop shipping and you make $400 a month doing that, you live with your mom, right? But if you tell me like, oh, I graduated from Duke, or I graduated from, even like a decent state school with an engineering degree. Okay, cool. I immediately have some idea that at the very least, you can show up and get a degree in engineering. That says something, right?
Yeah, but it's superficial because
it's
just
absolutely
because
not
you,
superficial. Saying you're an entrepreneur is superficial.
But if you also sure, but if you score 1,600 on the SAT, it doesn't mean that you can have an original thought. To me, having an original thought is more brilliant than scoring 1,600 on the SAT.
That's true, but I feel like the goal, this happens, everybody does this. There are problems, this goes back to one of the first things I said on the show, in terms of me defending institutions. I wish that we were better at criticizing things without throwing the whole thing out. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that school, K through 12, or colleges are a perfect institution. I think there's a lot of wasted time. I'm very progressive, but I think that the ideological leanings of the school are fucking insane, right? That 13-1 is barely even a real number because you know that one conservative is not like a gun-toting MAGA lobby. That's like
true.
a liberal conservative, right? That's a guy that would have voted for Clinton, right? The one conservative, right? So there are definitely problems with the school. I just don't like the idea like, okay, there are some problems. I'm going to throw all of it out. We're going to ignore all the pros, and we're going to get so ideologically invested in our particular solution that we can't even name a single con because I still don't know a con from the homeschooling thing. And I can think of 3 off the top of my head. My sister was homeschooled for her entire life. I know tons of cons off the top of my head.
What are the cons?
One is that you have a parent that's stuck in the household. Two is that you have to go out of your way to find extracurricular groups to sign up for.
The parent in the household is not a con to me.
Okay. Well, you're not. Well, that's because you guys had a lot of money. For parents where both parents need to work, that's unfortunately for a lot of people, that's not an option.
Right.
Right. So one
But
is
it's not a con to homeschooling. It's a barrier, but it's not a con.
The con is that it's a job that you don't get paid for. You're a slave to your kid, which is kind of okay. It's part of like being a parent to some extent, but a lot of parents.
I reject that characterization.
Okay, well, for the people that can't afford to have a single person, a parent, staying in the household until the child is 18.
Go down the list.
For a lot, yeah, that's one. The second one is you have to go out of your way to find
extracurricular activities.
Yeah,
for your school,
like it could be
sports
CCD, it could be
activities,
church stuff, it could be whatever.
Sure.
Thankfully, my parents were religious. I say thankfully, I'm an atheist now, but like they had an easy community to kind of like enroll their kids in the Catholic or my sister in class, whatever. And then 3 is support can be difficult. If at least back when they did it 15, 20 years ago, hold on.
It's changed a lot.
Sure, it's probably changed a lot, but it could be like if you've got questions about like a certain curriculum or which books are the best or whatever, it could be hard to find that support online. Whereas if you've got issues with schools, there's a whole infrastructure infrastructure built out. And then 4 is not as big a deal, but things related to special education requirements can be really, really complicated in the home if you're not ready to be like a full-time caretaker or meet like the individual needs of a child. Maybe a child has a speech impediment and you don't know how to train them. You'd have to take them to a speech pathologist instead of relying on school, right? Maybe they're asking for career guidance and you don't know the answer. Your child's like, oh, I want to be a mechanical engineer when I grow up. And it's like, okay, well, I got my degree in writing. I have no idea like what guidance I can give you. So those are like 4 off the top of my head that are like challenges.
I went to high school and I had my drama class because I really liked drama and I really wanted to be an actress. And everybody at the high school, literally like everybody at the high school said, you can't be an actress because nobody ever succeeds. And frankly, the gal who taught acting, pretty girl, had spent a bunch of time in New York, clearly had not succeeded because she was teaching high school drama in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So of course her paradigm was nobody succeeds because she didn't succeed. So just because your parent doesn't know how to get you somewhere doesn't mean that the school does. And in fact, there are plenty of people in schools that dissuade children, like I was dissuaded, from pursuing acting, which is why I ended up at Duke University and then had debt because I was studying something that I eventually didn't do. But the other thing that I just have to say, we live in a culture right now that believes in the school model because why? We all went to school, so we were all brainwashed into the school model. So your very definition of education is, well, you have to perform well on a test. That is not the true definition of education. And the idea that it's a terrible burden to have to be enslaved to your child, I will say this. We also live in a culture that our schools have taught us that sacrifice is the ultimate evil, that you should never sacrifice anything because you can have it all. And that's a lie from the pit of hell. And the fact is that sacrifice is the highest good. And the only reason that our culture has survived and that this nation has been created is because they understood that the free exchange, the free sacrifice of self for something greater than is the greatest good that we can have. And that's the basis of our economy. It's the basis of capitalism. It's the basis of growth. And frankly, it's the basis of family. So when you have a family, you learn that you sacrifice for your family because in the sacrifice, your true value comes out.
And that's
you build
great.
your value.
That's great. But when you say sacrifice, that implies a con. That's all I was saying. If you can afford to stay home and
That's
take
because the definition that we have been given from our schools is that sacrifice is evil. Sacrifice is not.
Sacrifice is
it's
evil.
not a con.
Sacrifice by definition. If there's no con involved, then it's not a sacrifice.
No, that's
right?
wrong.
That would be like me giving my wife a $500 certificate to some fucking restaurant and be like, "Look, I sacrificed for you. Get the fuck off my back." That's not a sacrifice. That doesn't mean anything. I didn't give anything up to do that, right? Sacrifice by definition implies that you're giving something up. If you've got plenty of money and you can stay home,
but it's not a con.
we're playing exotic language games to say that there are no cons involved in sacrifice. A sacrifice by definition is a pro on one side and a con on the other.
Then you can't call it a con.
Do you have to sacrifice to go to the gym?
You can't call it a con.
Do you have to sacrifice to go to the gym? Is there a con to going to the gym?
There's a sacrifice to everything, so you can't call it a con.
I'm going to keep asking this question. Is there a con to going to the gym? Is it painful? Do you spend time doing it?
Okay.
There are cons to it, but there are pros too. You're healthier, you look better.
So you can't just call it a con. It's disingenuous to say sacrifice is a con.
You would say there are pros and cons. That's what we were saying before. That was Adam's initial question, I think 2 hours ago, was what are the pros and what are the cons? Just because something might be on the net good, there's still going to be cons involved.
Sure.
Right? Sure. Okay.
Net good.
Sure. Also, I think it's important to note, you mentioned having this really bad drama teacher. All of us have had bad teachers, I imagine. Right? All of us have probably also had hopefully at least one.
We've had good teachers and bad teachers, yes.
Exceptionally amazing teacher.
Right, but we tend to glorify the school and say, but school is net good. And my view is school is net bad.
Okay, but the people who don't go to school probably are doing.
The point is, I think that different people will say, well, there was a net positive and there was a net negative. I think this is the whole fundamental question I was asking. What are the pros and cons? Because I don't think that there are all pros of doing homeschooling. I also don't think there's all cons of going to actual school.
Right. But of course my viewpoint is net
bad
good
for schools,
net bad for school.
How old is your youngest kid?
17.
Okay. I think you guys should just swap lives for a day. And your kid should go to homeschooling with Sam, and kid should go to Destiny's kid go to home learning.
I wish
Pat,
that I
you
could
want to take it
convince
from
you
here?
to try it because it is the most amazing.
I'm sure
thing.
there
and
are
you don't
amazing...
understand. Here's what people who send their children to school don't understand. They fundamentally can't understand the sacrifice that they are making.
I mean, you say that, but then on the other hand, too, I was a lot more lukewarm to the idea until Adam started asking about the socialization stuff. I feel like there's a lot of socialization that you're undercounting for your children. When he asked you, like, what kind of friends do my kids have? And your first answer was, well, he's a 2 million follower account on TikTok. In my opinion, that's actually one of the fundamental driving forces in our society today that is destroying children's
Yeah, he
lives.
doesn't believe in TikTok.
is-
My point is
He
that
might
he's
not
an
believe in it, but
extreme-
his 2
I
million
think
followers.
you're just
do.
mad that he has more
he's-
followers on TikTok than
he-
you.
my-
That's-
Only
my
because my
point-
accounts keep getting banned.
exactly,
okay?
bro.
No, but
Clean
I'm
it
getting
up.
depressed.
It's because
okay?
you went
My-
to homeschool. You went to school and you
But-
hung out with the wrong
but
kids.
let me clarify that my point with that is he's an extreme extrovert. He has a ton of friends everywhere.
great.
Like he goes.
Listen, here's let's transition to a different topic. Here's what I will say on just listen to you guys going back and forth. You know what you think the world of a homeschooling is, you don't have full context on it, right? We're
Totally
trying to
agree.
Okay. What she thinks of everything else as being very evil may not be as realistic to you and I, because we're like, yeah, I mean, like the biggest thing for me is the reason why I like conversations like this is because I learn through debate. That's how I learn.
That's
I
how
learn
we
through
should
people
learn.
debate. Sometimes if it's at the house, they're only hearing from one personality, one teacher. There isn't enough debate. Maybe that's one thing that is a high value in our family. I love debate. I love exchange. I love disagreements because it's getting your brain to work. It's like a muscle working here. If you don't have that, there's no debate. So it's not getting us to learn.
That's
so
why we read good books, right?
I mean, yeah, we read plenty of books in our family, and I still like to have the debates. Now, on the flip side of it, let me tell you what does concern me. This whole like sex change stuff that they're talking about right now with transgender, right? Hey, you know, what's wrong with it? You should let them do it. They should let them go through it. You know, what's wrong with a kid wanting to do that? And hey, if the parent agrees and approves to, they should let them do it. Some of that stuff for me is the brain's not yet been fully shaped to make tough decisions like that in your life. That should come later on. To me, to make some of those things introduced to kids like, hey, now we got 7 billion different pronouns to go to school, and my kids got to come and say, hey, one of my classmates today said they have a pronoun, they want to be called this, what is that, that? I don't want to have those conversations with you. I just don't. And the public school has made the mistake of allowing that to be normal, and they're taking a hit for it. By the way, states have also made a mistake. California is losing people to other states. So is New York. So is other people. And a lot of people in Florida, no matter what they say about DeSantis, love him or hate him, his philosophies took him from barely winning the governorship by 34,000 votes to winning by 1.5 million votes. He's speaking to parents who have similar fears to the ones that you have. So power to him. You are not alone here, you know. On you talking about the issues that you're talking about.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.